One of the key parts of culture is education, and Yorkton has had a massive variety of schools across its history. While in a previous video, I discussed how the church helped create the Catholic schools across the city, I have yet to discuss the history of the non-religious schools. Standing in front of one of the pillars of such, let's go back to school and learn about Yorkton's public education. I'm Hayden DeGrow, and I'm the Culture and Heritage Specialist for the City of Yorkton. I love learning history, and teaching people about Yorkton's past is a proud part of my job. Join me as I highlight fascinating people, places, and events from Yorkton's history and take you where these places can be found today. This is Yorkton Retold. Schools are a fundamental part of any community. Not only do they provide a place for children and youth to learn essential skills such as reading, writing, and mathematics, but they also provide a place for community events to take place and also a meeting ground for local groups. Classrooms, theaters, and gymnasiums all contribute to the feeling of community in a town or a city. To see where Yorkton began in that regard, we need to turn back the clock a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean all the way back to 1889. In this year, Yorkton was still a tiny colony on the banks of the Little White Sand River. But kids were soon occupying the colony with their parents, and schooling was demanded by these colonists. In response, the founder of Yorkton, James Armstrong, converted one of his cabins into a one-room school, welcoming its first 15 pupils following the harvest in 1889. While the school was moved a little further south to where the mark is now, the school remained in operation for the remainder of the original site's occupation. In 1891, Yorkton was celebrating the arrival of the railroad and its moving to a new town site. During this celebratory time, several new buildings were rising up almost every day. In addition to the Yorkton flour mill that I described in a previous video, just down Argyle Street was a new building arising, Yorkton Public School. The new school was later known as, fittingly, Argyle School. The classic one-room school that we see on the left part of this photo was where every child in Yorkton went to school. Here, they were taught the subjects they would need to function in the turn-of-the-century society. The second wing, this one wood-framed, unlike the original's stone walls, was constructed in 1894 to try and increase space in the school. In this photo, we can see one of the first classes that attended the school, with the staff members standing right behind them. The photo is fading though, just as the school faded into obscurity. Here we can see where that school once stood. As schooling became more necessary and the population of Yorkton rapidly grew, the need for a new school also rose. When that new school was built, Argyle School was still used for many decades afterwards, this time as a community center. Sadly, time was inevitable and the schoolhouse was demolished in the 1970s. What replaced Argyle School was a pair of schools, one for secondary school, now known as high school, and the other for elementary levels. This photo, and now in color, shows what the original elementary school was. Known as Victoria School, the three-story building was built in 1899 and was a proud example of what schools looked like in the late 1890s. The school was located further north, deep in the heart of the developing residential areas beyond Broadway Street. Zooming in on the front lawn, we can see one of the daily routines at the school. While today we associate school gym classes with dodgeball and dirty laundry, we can see that way back in 1900, gym classes were more like military drills, where muscle stretches and movements were practiced with near military-like feel. To further get an idea of the life in the school, let's peer at this 1904 class photo. Back then, in order to get the best lighting, such photos were taken outside. Here we can see the grade 7 class with the girls in the middle of the shot and their male classmates standing on either end. In this lovely park is where that school once stood. Just like its predecessor on Argyle Street, this school began to be outdated and was officially decommissioned as a school in 1929. Also like its Argyle Street predecessor, Victoria School stuck around as a community hall. Sadly, in 1957, the school fell victim to a fire and burnt down. The park I am standing in now, known as Shaw Park, is what will replace the schoolyard. It is still a popular place for the local neighborhood. To replace the original Victoria School, the local school board built a new building with more room. However, they did not do away with the school's name. The new Victoria School opened in 1929 and was where students living between Broadway and Darlington Streets attended their lessons. This school, as we now can see it in color, was a popular community center for the area. Unfortunately, time once again would be a factor in claiming the school, and the city eventually outgrew even this one. Victoria School ceased classes in 1957 and was later torn down due to its age. Today, apartment buildings occupy its site and schoolyard. During the time that the first Victoria School was opening its classes, Western Yorkton was rapidly expanding in residential areas. The first iteration of a school was fittingly named West End School and was located right here. West End School opened in 1905 and was a quick starter, holding 100 students within its walls in just a few years. However, the school was put in a problematic situation almost immediately. Just 5 years after the school opened, the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway was arriving in the city, and the school was right in the way of its path. Instead of having to build a whole new building, the school district decided to move the entire school, brick by brick, to a new location on the corner of Broadway Street and Melrose Avenue. Sadly, it too fell victim to an ever-expanding city and was decommissioned in 1915. It has since been demolished and made way for the parking lot of the strip mall that now sits there. To replace West End School, the school district purchased land from William Simpson, a man who would later become a prominent part of their board. The school they built would then go on to be a prominent part of Yorkton history. To honor the former landowner, the district named the new school after Simpson. Simpson School would go on to become the longest operating school in Yorkton history and the fourth longest in Saskatchewan history. It opened its doors in 1915 and did not close until, get this, 1998. During this long history, the school district decided to try a new tactic. Instead of building a new school when new classrooms were needed and overcrowding cropped up as an issue, the school chose to simply add additions to the existing school. In 1952, the school division bought a series of former dormitory buildings from the decommissioned Yorkton Air Base and converted them into extra classrooms. However, these proved to be a bad choice, and the district replaced them with a permanent addition in 1967. This new addition consisted of a new gym, library, 6 new classrooms, a new staff room, and teachers' offices. As said earlier, though, the school did not last long and did eventually close, with the last class being held there in 1998. Today, while the original school building was demolished in 2005 due to age, the school's addition, known as the Annex, stayed in operation. After housing the Parkland Regional College for more than 15 years, the current occupants are the Prairie Harvest Christian Life Center. However, Simpson School's former site was not officially turned into a park. Today, it is simply a parking lot and green space. The final historic elementary school built in Yorkton was known as Burke School, named after the first principal of Simpson School. It was the northernmost school in Yorkton and catered to all students living north of Darlington Street. It was a proud brick building that opened its doors in 1920. As Yorkton expanded even further north, the street on the north part of the schoolyard was named after Burke as well. In 1951, a new school opened in the former building of the Yorkton Collegiate. We'll get to that in a minute. Burke School finally shuttered its classrooms and stayed around as a community center just after that. But just as Simpson School was closing its doors in 1998, the school district, then known as the Yorkton Public School Division, demolished Burke School. Just like most of its predecessors, the schoolyard became a park, this one celebrating the Ukrainian pioneers who helped shape Yorkton as we know it today. Now that the elementary schools have been discussed, let's graduate on up to high school. For students that were old enough for secondary school, Yorkton built a separate school to spread out the numbers. To start off a separate facility, the school district assembled these small buildings in 1908. But wait, you're probably wondering, why is there a set discrepancy in dates? Didn't Argyle School stop being one in 1899? And yes, you'd be right. See, the atmosphere of the time in terms of secondary school was not necessarily the same as we see it today. Back at the turn of the 20th century, students did not need to attend school beyond grade 10. This meant that classes were few and far between and were only held in the council chambers at Yorkton Town Hall and later a parish hall. When the atmosphere changed, new facilities were needed. These small buildings were the answer, but were only a temporary measure. The true collegiate was being built nearby, quite literally next door. And this is what that structure looked like in its prime. The Yorkton Collegiate was opened in 1910 and was a massive 4-story tall brick structure. It looks even more impressive in color. The school opened with enough room for over 200 students and was well equipped for the future. In this photo from 1923, we can see how quickly the school was growing, reflecting the rapid growth of the city itself. And this is where the school once stood. However, I know what you're thinking. That school that we see here does not look like the one we just saw. And you'd be right. The original Yorkton Collegiate eventually began to be seen as outdated, and soon a new high school was begun in the late 1950s. The new school, sharing the name of the original, was officially opened in November of 1960. The original building was saved, but not forever. It is obviously not here anymore. The western part of the schoolyard is where that building once stood. While the new building to this day is still a school, a high school it is not. Today it is known as Dr. Brass School, named after the first principal of Yorkton Collegiate. This school is what ultimately replaced Burke School in the northern area of Yorkton. In 1967, the school board opened up a brand new school, a massive building just down Darlington Street from the original Collegiate. This time on the corner of Gladstone Avenue. This new school, known as the Yorkton Regional High School, remains to this day one of the largest high schools in Saskatchewan outside of the major cities of Regina and Saskatoon. Of course, there have been many other schools, some still housing students today. There are too many, though, to truly give their own stories. Fairview, Columbia, Yorkdale, and MC Knoll have since opened up to take up the mantle set by their predecessors. And while Fairview is no longer a school, it is still operating with the Yorkton Tribal Council. Today, the Yorkton School Division is part of the Good Spirit School Division, and all the public schools are prominent members of the division. Oh, school's out. Time to go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. See you next time, History Buffs.